Thank you to our media partners for being here today. Good morning. I'm Kurt Westby, the Commissioner of Labor, and I'm honored to be here with Governor Lamont, as well as Deputy Commissioner Dante Bartolomeo. Over the past 8 months of this pandemic, good news has been sparse. Today, though, I'm pleased to announce that Governor Lamont has signed Executive Order 9P, which directs the Department of Labor to expand eligibility for the Federal Lost Wages Assistance Program to an additional 38,000 residents. The Lost Wages Assistance Program, or LWA, used disaster relief funds to help supplement unemployment benefits for more than 160,000 people in Connecticut who were unemployed due to COVID-19. This stimulus funding was critical to individuals and families. $327 million was allocated over 6 weeks from July 26 to September 5. But LWA had a significant drawback. In order to qualify, unemployed workers had to have a minimum benefit of at least $100 per week. This threshold unlocked an additional $300 under the Lost Wages Assistance Program. So while the program helped more than 160,000 residents, 38,000 of their neighbors were disqualified because they received less than $100 per week in unemployment benefits. Many of them are low-wage earners. The governor's executive order corrects this by directing the agency to use the state's trust fund to increase the weekly benefit for most of those 38,000 people to $100 per week. This makes them eligible retroactively for the federal lost wages assistance payments. This is a temporary increase. It covers only the 6 weeks that the original program ran, but it is an important increase that allows those claimants to bring in potentially up to another $1,800 each. 38,000 people will receive additional funds to get them up to $100 for those 6 weeks. Then they are able to certify retroactively for the federal LWA funding, that is $300 per week for up to 6 weeks. I want to thank Governor Lamont and his team for getting this executive order on the books. It's good news for our residents. It's good for our economy. It bolsters economic activity. It allows the state to bring in $55 million additional dollars of federal funding to help support residents when they need it the most. Governor, thank you and your team for your leadership, and I hand it off to you.
Hey, right back at you, Kurt, and Daryl and Dante and the incredible team at Department of Labor. You've been working overtime. Over 1 million claims have come in, adjudicating that since the beginning of this pandemic. And let me tell you what this means for working families. This pandemic is wreaking havoc with our health. It's also wreaking havoc with a lot of family budgets and small business. And we've got to use every tool in the toolkit as we try and maximize support for working families in this state as we continue to wait for the federal government to figure out what they're going to do. And I got to hand it to you, Kurt, and the team. Who are these 38,000 people who are earning less than $100 a week? They're often single parent, single mom, maybe working 2 or 3 jobs in and around the minimum wage, maybe at the fast food, maybe at the restaurant, maybe home health care. She loses 1 or 2 of those extra jobs. She's now down to less than $100 a week, and she was frozen out of any unemployment support. And that was wrong. So what we've been able to do is supplement that out of our unemployment to get her up to $100 a week. And that means we're going to be able to get that extra $300 for her. And I come out of the world of small business. I kind of like it. This is a $7.5 million investment by the state of Connecticut, and it's going to return $55 million to working moms and dads around the state of Connecticut. And what that means in this holiday season in terms of being able to maybe get a little something extra for their child at Christmas or Hanukkah, what that means, go shop at a local merchant. I just cannot thank you enough for what you're able to do here. And by the way, Kurt, what also you've been able to do for our small businesses. We're waiting for the PPP loans. It looks like the $900 billion compromise budget may be making some progress in Washington, but I'm not going to tip at windmills either. That would extend the $300 for another 4 months, so maybe we can leverage that again in this coming year. It also extends the PPP. But in the meantime, we've got to do everything we can to help our small business. Again, you're doing that by expansion of the shared work program, where we're able to step in and help restaurants and other small businesses, pick up some of the cost of their employees. And thank you. I know you've added on about 10,000 people who otherwise would be laid off, and instead they're participating in the shared work program and able to keep themselves employed. So, my hat's off to you. And I know you're working, you got this old technology system. When it takes an upgrade, it's not like a Steve Jobs automatic download is delivered to your iPhone. You've been working around the clock to make this work on behalf of the people of Connecticut, and for that, I'm really thankful.
Thanks, Governor.
We will now take questions. We will start with Steve Singer. Once again, if you can raise your hand using the hand function in Microsoft Teams, we'll try to get to as many questions as we can.
Governor, can you hear me?
Not quite.
Hello?
Steve Singer, Hartford Current.
Echoes. Max can't hear a thing.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me? I just want to ask you if I don't know what's going on here.
Steve, try again. We're getting a significant echo from you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I'll unmute.
We'll go next to the Connecticut Mirror, Keith Faniff.
Thanks, Max. Governor or Commissioner Westby, could one of you explain what it's going to cost the state to bring these 38,000 folks up to $100, and also right now about what they're getting? In other words, are they getting like about $70 a week, and we're putting in another 30? And again, what's also the aggregate cost to the state trust? Because right now we're borrowing that money, but we'll ultimately, our businesses will have to make that up.
Kurt?
Unmute. Commissioner Westby, unmute.
There we are. I'm sorry. I'll take that. I don't know how that happened. Right now, for those who only had a benefit of less than $100, the average plus up would be $43 per person for those 6 weeks. So that would be the average amount individually. The collective amount in terms of the number that we would be that would come from the trust fund would be $7.5 million. So that investment of $7.5 million in the aggregate would plus everyone up to 100 so that they could all receive the additional 300, which would amount to about an average, a total aggregate of $55 million from the feds.
And just one quick follow, Commissioner. Right now, how much financing have we reserved for the federal financing have we reserved for the state trust, and how much have we drawn down on it to date?
We've drawn down about $419 million to the trust fund, and we will continue to be drawing down throughout this year. I think we have a request in for this month or early next month for another $250 million.
Thank you.
The question from the Hartford Current was regarding the $7 million commitment from the state and how that multiplies into the more than $50 million figure. Commissioner Westby or Governor Lamont, if you could clarify that and answer that, if you would.
Well, the the multiplier is such that $43 per recipient per week yields $300. So that's a multiplier right there of about 1 to 7. And then if you look at the last recession, the Great Recession that we had, for every dollar we found out that goes into unemployment, there is an economic yield to the economy of 1.9. So multiply that 7 to each individual, multiply that times 1.9, and you'll get the total amount roughly that would affect the economy. So you're upwards to a multiplier of 14 if you use that methodology.
CT News Junkie.
This question is for Commissioner Westby. As far as repayment to the state's unemployment trust fund, is the state going to be helping businesses out by, with making that repayment of that loan to the federal government, or is there, or are businesses going to be on the hook for the whole thing?
Well, normally the businesses would be on the hook for any borrowing, like in the last recession. But as to whether the state, through whatever vehicle they use, decide to supplement the trust fund, that's not my call. I think you'd have to ask that question to someone else, maybe OPM.
The Waterbury Republican American. Oh, sorry, Dante, would you like to chime in? Unmute.
Thank you, Max. Just to add to that, Christine, I want to mention that Commissioner Westby has already, early on in the pandemic, written to the federal government asking that the loans be turned into grants. So we are on record as having asked that, and we know that others are advocating for that as well.
The Waterbury Republican American.
Yeah, I'll ask Christine's question to the governor, because I believe he would be in a position to have something to do with providing any sort of state assistance. Is that something that's under consideration?
Let's talk about the unemployment trust fund, Paul. Last year, we added about $140 million to it. It had been terribly underfunded, like a lot of things, probably going back to the 08-09 recession. So we were beginning to build it back up. Then we got hit by this pandemic, and like most of the states around the country, we're now borrowing from the federal government. Right now, we're borrowing with zero interest through the end of this year. We'll see what it is for the coming year. And as Dante said, there's a number of bills out there that might turn the loans we get from the federal government into grants. Because you're absolutely right. If we have to pay back these loans to the federal government, even at a very low interest rate, that would impact our rating and be a small tax on state unemployment. So let me get back to you on that. But are we going to pour state taxpayer dollars into the unemployment fund now? No. Am I going to take money away from testing in schools and pour it into the unemployment fund at this point? I'm not thinking about doing that. Maybe if at December 31st, if we had a little bit left over, but that's not our plan. We have better uses for that money really related to public health.
Okay, just to be clear, so we borrowed about what, 665, or expect to borrow 665 million out of what, 800 million we've been approved? Is that right?
We've borrowed about $419 million.
It looks like he's frozen. We borrowed 419 to date, Paul. I think you heard the commissioner say we've got another tranche of borrowing. My instinct is the unemployment rate's going to stay relatively high, and we could be borrowing from the feds for the foreseeable future next year.
We're with Paul Hughes from the Waterbury Republican American. Paul, if you want to repeat your question for either Commissioner Westby, Deputy Commissioner Bartolomeo, or Governor Lamont.
Oh, okay. Actually, well, I did get an answer from Commissioner Westby and Deputy Commissioner Bartolomeo on my questions. So I'm good. I know you guys are pressed for time, so I'll be more than glad to pass on. Thank you.
We'll move on to Sue Haig with the Associated Press.
Thanks, Max. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to clarify, will this change affect new or reopened unemployment cases?
No, this should not affect new or reopened unemployment cases. This is all retroactive.
So anyone now who's earning less than $100, they would not be affected? This is only previous people? I was just confused. Okay.
No, that's correct. This goes from last week in July through the first week in September, so it would not affect any new applications since then, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Thank you. And the other question I had was, today there's a report out that shows that employers nationally sharply scaled back hiring last month. Are we seeing this in Connecticut as the pandemic is intensifying?
Well, from the latest data that I've looked at, I think actually employment for November has upticked a bit. So I don't think that's the case. I think there is certainly worry based on restrictions that will inevitably be imposed across the country, that we may get a higher unemployment and we may have more claims, but it has not been significant yet, at least here in Connecticut.
Sue, the employment numbers that came out today were a little less than what was forecast around the country, and I think there's just we're trying to plan for what could happen in terms of our economy if COVID continues to ramp up, and what that means for our businesses, our service economy, and a lot of employees.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Bartolomeo.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to it, the governor had mentioned the shared work program, and I think that's really important in addition to the answer to this question, because not all states have a program like that. So we've been proactively, with the support of the governor and the governor's administration, approaching companies who are in fear of having to lay businesses off. And that's a partnership program whereby they can reduce the hours for their staff anywhere from 10 to 60% the amount that they're paying them. And then we supplement with additional benefits from the shared work program for unemployment. And that's an attempt to keep businesses going and to keep employees at their job, at least part-time, but also more importantly, be able to maintain their benefits and their standing within the company. So that's a program that we have that is not something that is within all states, and a benefit to Connecticut employers and employees.
And if I may jump on that, Dante, I'm glad you brought that up. Shared work program is 100% reimbursed by the feds, at least through the end of this year. So we're thrilled about that. There are already over 30,000 people on shared work. So, and it's growing pretty fast. So I believe that the shared work program has mitigated layoffs in the state of Connecticut without a doubt. And I think because of it, we are in a better place, and we're going to even be in a better place than we are today vis-a-vis the unemployment numbers next year.
We are not seeing any more questions unless there are some last-minute ones. If someone wants to raise their hand, give it a moment here. We'll go to Brian.
Say something.
Hi, Governor. Hi, everyone. So I have a question. We've been in contact with a woman who's kind of been on and off unemployment. Sometimes she makes more than she gets more than $100 a week, but sometimes based on the hours she works, she gets under $100 a week. So how would this work for her?
Well, I'll lead off, and then I probably hand this one off to Dante. But we cannot give you an answer today. People's benefits go up and down based on their employment history, their status, and there's a very complex web of different programs and different benefits. So there's no way I think we could answer your question. It's complicated. All of these cases have to be reviewed by a professional to weed through the various programs that we have, and the benefit allowances can change every week based on their work search and based on the hours that they work. Dante, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Sure, thank you. So first of all, I want to draw your attention to the website, which will have questions and answers very specific to this particular program and the plan and the expansion as well. And then, of course, we do have the contact center, which folks can call to speak to someone about their individual case. Generally, though, the weekly benefit amount is established at the beginning of their application process based on prior earnings. We are taking that benefit amount and increasing that up to the $100 mark. So for each individual, that's a weekly increase for the 6 weeks between July 26th and September 5th. So they would maintain a $100 or more benefit. The difference would be that if they have earnings during the week, those earnings are applied to the benefit and can reduce it. So they could be in a situation just like regular unemployment where their earnings bring them under the eligibility mark for the additional plus up. So we're not changing anything at all weekly. It would just be a potential change based on their earnings for that week.
I'll jump in since we have maybe a minute. Your question is a reminder why, like out of my world, I always go, Dante, why can't we do more of this online? Why isn't this an electronic transaction? Why can't we speed it up? And then you find out how incredibly unique a lot of these claims are. And that's why we had to reconstitute a call service center so you get professional, personal support to help you, work through these things. They had closed that down, some years ago, and had to get that back up, as well as the technology upgrades. But look, Kurt and Dante and the team at DOL, I just think you're doing extraordinary work, and I hope you pass that along to all the people who work there. This is a really complicated time for people, and you are a lifeline to people who are worried about their next paycheck and or at least the next meal on the table for their kids. Thanks, everybody.